Our past webinars focused heavily on visual evolution, layouts, UI trends, brand expression, motion, and so forth. Those conversations mattered, and they still do. But what we've seen over the last several years is a shift in focus, specifically around bottom line results. In 2026, most mid-sized websites don't fail because they're outdated. They fail because they weren't designed to convert, scale, or support growth. Today's section looks at design strategies that will support conversions and growth. Here's a simple observation. Today, most websites look fine. They're modern, they're responsive, they're built on solid platforms. And for the most part, they follow basic UX best practices. Very few sites that we review feel visually embarrassing or obviously outdated. In other words, visual maturity has largely been achieved across the mid-market segment. And yet, despite that, we hear the same frustrations when we talk to marketing and leadership teams. We hear things like, traffic is up, but leads aren't. We keep adding content, but the site isn't performing any better. Every improvement seems to require development resources. And so we're thinking that we need a redesign. What's interesting is that none of these problems are a function of design. They're performance issues, they're usability problems, and they're scalability problems. And this is where many organizations assume the answer is a redesign. But that assumption in this case is wrong. The issue is that the site was not originally designed to support ongoing growth. The growth bottleneck isn't visual maturity. The bottleneck is structural design. The way in which this site was organized, how users move through it, how easily it can be updated and optimized, and how well it supports conversion, SEO, AIO, and performance. And that's why, pardon me, the most important web design strategies in 2026 have very little to do with aesthetics and everything to do with structure, systems, and intent. So we see a similar pattern with many mid-sized organizations. Pages trying to do too much. Navigation reflects internal departments instead of user goals. Calls to action compete with one another. Content grows without a governance system, and optimization becomes difficult or impossible without a rebuild. These are not problems that we can solve with modern fonts or visuals. They're problems of intent, hierarchy, and system design. They're solved with better structure, flow, and systems, which is what today's strategies focus on. Once you see a website through that lens, the solution moves from being a redesign project to a restructure initiative. These patterns don't just hurt usability or conversions. They directly impact search visibility and AI-driven discovery. Traditionally, SEO relied on authority, relevancy, clear page focus, and structure in order to rank content. When pages tried to do too much or lacked hierarchy, rankings would suffer. And that problem still exists, but it's no longer the full picture. In 2026, we also need to think about GEO and AIO. GEO, or Generative Engine Optimization, determines whether AI systems will select and cite your content when generating answers. So pages with mixed intent, weak structure, or buried content won't likely be used as sources. AIO goes even further. It's about whether your entire site system is understandable, trustworthy, and current enough for AI-driven discovery. If your content is stale and hard to update, inconsistent, or locked into rigid layouts, it'll likely get bypassed. So when we see pages with no clear purpose, competing CTAs, or stale content, The impact isn't just lower conversions, it's lost visibility across SEO and AI-driven channels. This is why, again, the solution isn't cosmetic, it's structural. And it's why everything we'll cover next focuses on intent, hierarchy, and systems, because that's what modern discovery engines actually reward. In our industry, the only constant is change. Technology and evolving market factors make change unavoidable. More than ever, online buyers self-educate online. SEO competition is super high as marketers compete for search visibility, and users are unforgiving when performance expectations aren't being met. Marketing teams need sites with flexibility to adjust and adapt. They need speed, not bottlenecks, as leadership expects the website to contribute directly to growth. In 2026, a website must be more than a digital brochure. It needs to be an operational growth engine, and it must be designed and structured to serve that role. To make this practical, let's look at 20 strategies across 5 themes. We're going to be looking at conversion and intent, structure and clarity, systems and scalability, performance and optimization, and finally, how we measure success. This reflects our own approach to web development, where sites are treated, or a site development project is treated as a holistic system and not simply a collection of pages to be categorized. Not every visitor is ready to convert in the same way. You'll have different users coming into your site at different stages of intent. So we're going to look at how we can align our sites according to that intent. One of the most important shifts you make in 2026 is moving from visual first design to conversion first design. Of course, that doesn't mean ignoring aesthetics. It means starting with a different question. It's become a cliche to talk about user first and user centric websites. Sure, the principle's valid, but to get there, instead of asking, what should this page look like? We have to ask, what does the visitor need to do here? High-performing mid-sized sites are designed to give users clear value propositions, a single primary call to action per page, and easy and frictionless paths forward. When we lead with conversion intent, design decisions become much clearer and users get what they need. Not all, again, not all pages exist for the same reason, but many sites are designed as if they do. High-performing sites will feature unique pages to satisfy different user goals, depending on where the user is on their journey. For instance, awareness versus consideration versus action. Pages should account for new versus returning visitors and organic versus paid traffic sources. Treating all pages the same is one of the biggest conversion killers that we see. Okay, Stripe. Unfortunately, we're not seeing the entire page, but I want to show this because Stripe is a strong example of intent-based page design because it doesn't treat every visitor in the same way. At the top of the page, Stripe clearly serves awareness intent. A simple headline explains what they do and who the site's for, while the enterprise logos below immediately build trust. Now, if this were live, you'd be able to scroll and check this out. You might want to check this out for yourself. The page shifts into a consideration slice. Instead of overwhelming users, Stripe introduces products in clear sections that let visitors explore deeper if they want to. And then for action-ready visitors, the primary CTA, Start Now and Contact Sales, is always visible, giving returning or paid traffic users a very fast path forward. The key point is this: Stripe isn't trying to say everything on one page. Each section or slice answers a different user intent, and that's why the page converts well. One of the fastest ways to kill conversions is simply to ask visitors to make too many decisions. Every page should have one primary call to action, one clear thing that you want the visitor to do next. That doesn't mean that you can't have secondary actions, but it does mean that there's a clear visual and conceptual priority. When pages present multiple competing CTAs like book a demo, contact us, download a guide, subscribe, learn more, on one page, well, users hesitate, and hesitation deters visitors from taking action. Shopify is another good example. This is their free trial page. It's a great example of how they use this discipline. The primary CTA, which is sticky and repeated, invites visitors to sign up for a free trial. That's the nature of the page. The hierarchy is unmistakable, and the simplicity and the clarity is very intentional. A single primary CTA works because it reduces decision fatigue. It reinforces the page's intent, and it creates a very clear path forward. This ties back to the intent-based design. An awareness page might prioritize learn more. A consideration page might prioritize see how it works. A decision page might prioritize start now or book a demo. When users don't have to think about what to do next, well, they're far more likely to take action. Trust. Trust isn't only built on a separate testimonials or about us page. High-performing pages embed trust signals directly where the action happens. So near CTAs, next to forms, and alongside claims. In contrast, things like partner logos, testimonials, certifications, and other proof points can also support the visitor's decision to convert. Trust can and should be baked into your strategy and page framework right from the get-go. Conversion requires more than trust and motivation. It also needs your content to reassure your user. Visitors hesitate again when they don't understand what happens next, or how long something will take, or what really is the commitment that they're making. Effective content will answer those questions proactively and naturally. These are considerations that you can checklist or ask yourself when you're planning and writing your content. By structuring content clearly and surfacing the right details at the right moment along the user's journey, you'll be able to inspire trust. High performance content will be informed with a voice that's calm, explanatory, and confidence building. Bear with me, my system is just frozen. Conversion improves when design intentionally removes obstacles instead of attempting to add elements of persuasion. So high-performing pages do three things consistently. They remove friction by simplifying flows, removing unnecessary steps, and making actions clear and obvious. They minimize choice by limiting distractions and guiding users toward a clear next step instead of overwhelming them with options. And they reduce uncertainty by answering unspoken questions about trust, risk, value, and outcomes. This is why conversion isn't a single tactic or a last-minute marketing layer. It's the result of design, UX, and messaging working together with intention. When conversion is treated as a design discipline instead of a bolt-on afterthought, the experience for the user feels easier, clearer, and more natural. And when it feels easy, people feel good about engaging and taking action. Up to this point, we've talked about intent. That is what your visitors are trying to accomplish when they land on a page. Structure and clarity is how that intent actually gets fulfilled. When web pages are structured properly, users don't have to guess, they don't have to search or hesitate. They just move forward. Most of the conversion problems that we uncover in audits aren't about color, branding, or visual style. They're problems with structure. For instance, when headlines don't clearly communicate value, users don't know if they're in the right place. When sections or page slices compete for attention because the hierarchies are off, visitors don't know where to focus. When layouts aren't scannable, users stop engaging and move on. Effective design prioritizes specific page hierarchies. That means strong, informative headlines that explain why this matters to your visitor. It means clear section order that guides users logically from understanding to action. And it means intentional pacing, breaking content into dissector or digestible blocks that can be scanned quickly, especially on mobile. This is where mid-sized sites struggle the most. They invest in creative idea or visual polish before the structure is solid. In our agency, we produce wireframes to help us get this right. In terms of conversions and logical page hierarchy, clarity and logical page hierarchy will outperform creativity. When users immediately understand what a page is about and what they can do next, well, conversion, again, it follows naturally. Anyone working in web design will be familiar with Steve Krug. 2 decades ago, Krug wrote a book titled Don't Make Me Think. That title alone captures a core principle to shape web design today. Thinking demands time and effort, and each additional choice that you present increases your user's cognitive load. Mid-sized websites often overwhelm users trying to say everything to everyone. Rather, we need to be specific and targeted. Winning designs intentionally reduce options, reduce visual noise, and competing messages. They guide attention instead of demanding it. Applying this principle will give you measurable performance improvements. I would encourage you to review your page designs with this principle in mind. Your homepage should not simply serve as a general content dump. The homepage needs to be clear and concise and focused to engage users and to answer their questions. Consider that the user's mind is asking, who is this site for? Is it for me? What does this business or organization do? Am I in the right place? Since I'm here, what can I do now? If visitors can't answer these sorts of questions right off the bat, no amount of visual impact or candy will save the experience. Mid-sized sites often suffer from content sprawl. Pages multiply, messages get fragmented, and then SEO weakens. Sites where organizations audit and do a ROT analysis, that is, they remove redundant, outdated, and trivial content, always perform best. High-performing sites consolidate content into fewer, stronger pages with clear purpose. This improves usability, strengthens SEO and AIO signals, and makes optimization far easier. We consistently see gains from consolidation alone. Now, evocative background patterns, colors, and textures aside, images shouldn't decorate. They're there to communicate. Images need to be relevant. They need to visually reinforce your copy, and they need to make sense. And don't forget that images must always include alt tags for screen readers and search engines. All right. Airbnb won't win too many design awards for this page. Nevertheless, their images perform a service. They quickly communicate the nature and style of the available rental suites. And it works very well for Airbnb. No, pardon me. Now, structure, if it's weak, everything else suffers. Structure determines almost everything downstream, from usability, SEO, conversion, and maintainability. They're all impacted by structure. When structure is strong, growth and scale becomes easier. When it's weak, every change feels expensive, and it will be. High-performing, scalable websites are always designed as systems. So what we mean by modular design systems is this. Instead of treating every page and its parts as a one-off layout, scalable websites are built from a library of reusable components. These components can include things like CTA blocks that can be reused and repositioned without redesigning, testimonial modules that can be swapped or updated without touching layouts, feature grids that can adapt to different content lengths, FAQ sections that can expand over time without breaking hierarchy, and so forth. This shift is critical for organizations because growth almost always means change. New services, new messaging, new campaigns, new priorities will come into play. And without a modular system, every change becomes expensive. Design should empower marketing teams, not trap them. But when many mid-sized websites But many many mid-sized websites do just that. A site can look good, but the moment someone wants to make a change, swap content, test a message, adjust a layout, it turns into a development task. CMS-friendly design means that you have editable sections, flexible layouts, and minimal hard coding. When teams can update and optimize without developers, well, momentum increases and costs drop. CMS-friendly design means intentionally designing with the content management system in mind right from the start. It assumes that content will change frequently, and the people making those changes will not necessarily be developers. Without this approach, marketing teams become dependent on developers for even minor updates. And of course, that slows momentum, increases costs, and discourages experimentation, which is really important. Over time, teams will stop optimizing, not because they don't want to, but because it's too hard. The takeaway here is that a website that can't be easily updated is effectively frozen in time. And in 2026, frozen websites don't just underperform, they get left behind. We know that website content rarely stays the same. Messaging evolves, services expand, priorities shift. And again, when design can't flex with those changes, every update feels like a compromise or a workaround. Designing for content longevity means intentionally building these flexible systems, not fixed compositions. Instead of layouts that only work if the headline is exactly so long or the copy fits a perfect word count, we design components that can expand, contract, or change order without breaking hierarchy or usability. This approach also changes how teams think about launch. The goal isn't to create a perfect website on day one. With websites being dynamic, the goal is to create a site that can adapt gracefully over time as the organization learns, grows, and refines its communication strategy. Designing for longevity means building flexible patterns that can evolve with the content, with the messaging, and with strategy. The goal isn't perfection at launch. It's to allow for adaptability over time. Up to this point, we've talked about clarity and conversion. Now we're going to talk about something design controls more than most teams realize, and that's performance. In reality, the most expensive websites are the ones that are hard to change. Well-designed systems reduce long-term costs, not just upfront costs. They make it easier to update content, introduce new pages, test ideas, and evolve as the business grows without triggering constant redesigns or rework. When the structure, components, and patterns are intentional, teams will move faster, risk goes down, consistency improves, and users gain confidence because the experience feels predictable and reliable. Poor systems do the opposite. They create design debt. Every small change becomes expensive, slow, or fragile. Teams hesitate to improve things because they're worried about breaking something. Growth becomes fragmented and performance suffers as complexity piles up. This is why performance and optimization aren't just technical concerns, they're design decisions. The choices made early around layout, components, and patterns directly determine how fast and cost-effective a site will be over time. Fast sites convert better and they rank higher. Again, performance is no longer just a technical concern, it's a design responsibility. Heavy animations, excessive fonts, uncompressed images, unnecessary scripts, these all impact speed. Fast sites, again, they convert and they rank better, and design decisions will directly influence performance outcomes. Mobile is obviously no longer a secondary experience. For most people, it's the primary one. For most sites, the majority of visitors will first encounter a brand or the brand on a phone. This means mobile design sets the standard, not desktop. True mobile-first design isn't about scaling layouts down. It's about designing for how people actually use their devices. This includes thumb-ready navigation, where key actions are easy to reach one-handed. It also includes sticky calls to actions, so visitors always know what to do next without scrolling back. And it includes short, scannable content blocks, because mobile users scan quickly and abandon slow or dense pages. So if a site only works well on desktop, it's already underperforming. Designing mobile first leads to simpler flows, clearer messaging, and stronger results across every device. Today, SEO and design are no longer separate disciplines. They're inseparable. Page design directly affects whether a design may be discovered, not just by traditional search engines, but also by AI-driven search and recommendation systems. Design supports SEO through fundamentals like clean heading structure, visible and crawlable content areas, and intentional internal linking. When headlines clearly communicate hierarchy and intent, search engines and AI systems can understand what a page is about and how it fits into the broader site. When content is hidden in sliders, tabs, or hard-coded layouts, discoverability obviously drops. This is super important in the era of AI optimized search. AI systems surface content based on clarity, structure, and context. Pages that are well organized, semantically clear, and intentionally connected are more likely to be used as source material in AI-generated answers. So when SEO is built into the design, results are apparent and will compound over time. Accessibility is often understood strictly as a compliance requirement, or it's seen as a constraint on creativity. In reality, accessibility improves usability for everyone, not just users with disabilities. Readable typography, proper contrast, logical heading structure, and keyboard-friendly navigation makes sites easier to scan, easier to understand, and easier to use across devices and contexts. These same qualities also benefit search engines. They improve performance metrics and they reduce friction in conversion paths. From a business perspective, accessibility can directly contribute to growth. Clear structure improves SEO, improved contrast and legibility can reduce bounce rates, and logical navigation can help to avoid user hesitation. Altogether, accessible design, expands the audience a site can effectively serve. Okay, we focused on intent, structure and clarity, and performance. So this section looks at how to measure whether those decisions are actually working and where to focus next. As websites become more complex and more critical to growth, design decisions should not be driven by opinions. In mid-sized organizations, design conversations still default to subjective feedback. What someone likes, what feels right, and often what leadership prefers. The problem is that opinions don't scale and they don't tell you whether the site is actually working. Analytics, of course, change that dynamic. Behavioral data shows us what users are actually doing, where they hesitate, where they drop off, and where they convert. Data tells us which pages are doing their job and which ones are creating friction, regardless of how polished they look. When design responds to real user behavior, improvements become measurable instead of debatable. Instead of asking, oh, do we like this layout? The question becomes, did this change reduce drop-off or increase the conversion? Analytics-informed design also allows you to make continuous and incremental improvements. Rather than waiting years for a redesign, teams can make smaller targeted changes based on evidence. They can adjust content hierarchies, refine CTAs, find and remove friction points, simplify user flows, and more. And they can see the impact relatively quickly. Again, clear conversion pathways, intentional page structure, and modular components make it easier to test, learn, and improve the site over time. The takeaway here is simple. When design is guided by behavior analytics, instead of opinions, websites stop being static assets, and they can continually improve the longer they're in use. While custom design can feel like differentiation, it often leads to over-engineering and long-term maintenance issues. Every custom component adds complexity over time. That complexity turns into design debt. Pages become harder to update, changes feel risky, and costs quietly increase. Eventually, teams will spend more time maintaining the site than improving it. Cost-efficient design takes a different approach. It relies on reusable patterns, proven components, and simpler systems that can adapt as the business grows. In our agency, we see this discipline pay off consistently. Teams move faster, updates cost less, and more budget can go toward optimization and growth instead of rework. I'll argue that this year, defining great design has changed. Design success is no longer about how impressive a website looks. It's about how effectively it supports your business or organization. High-performing websites are measured by conversion rates, lead quality, and their contribution to revenue. They make it easier for the right people to take the right actions, and they reduce friction across the customer journey. This doesn't mean aesthetics don't matter. They absolutely do. But aesthetics are a means to an end, not the end in itself. Design should clarify value, guide decisions, and support momentum, not just win approval in a review meeting. Again, when design is aligned to business outcomes, it becomes much easier to make decisions. Instead of debating preferences, teams can ask, did this improve conversions? Did lead quality improve? Did this help sales move faster? If design isn't making growth easier by increasing efficiency and improving lead quality or supporting revenue, then it isn't doing its job, no matter how great it looks. What all this comes down to is a shift in how mid-sized organizations should think about their websites. In 2026, the strongest sites won't be defined by how they look at launch. They'll be defined by how well they hold up over time. This year, effective websites will be structured around intent, so visitors can move forward without friction. They'll be built with clarity, so users and search engines understand them quickly, and they'll be designed as systems, so teams can update, optimize, and adapt without starting over. These sites don't treat SEO, conversion, performance, or accessibility as separate concerns. They design for all of them together, knowing that alignment is what delivers efficiency and allows results to compound. And instead of optimizing for launch cost or visual novelty, they optimize for longevity, reducing design cycles, lowering risk, and making growth less expensive year after year. This is the pattern we consistently see across the most successful organizations that we work with. Not flashier design, but better structure, better systems, and better outcomes. With that, I hope these strategies will give you something to think about, or maybe a framework that you can use to judge your organization's website. I'm Dale Slattery. If you have questions, please feel free to contact me. The address is on the screen. Thank you for joining us.